Buck Denver, man of news here. So the Gospels tell us the story of Jesus, how he paid the penalty for all our sin by dying on the cross, then beat sin and death by rising again. Phil, what does the book of Acts tell us?
So in the book of Acts, we see how Jesus sent his followers out to spread this good news to the whole world.
But most of his followers think this good news is only for Jewish people, not for, what are they called?
Gentle reptiles.
No, Gentiles.
Right, Gentiles. So what does God do to change Peter's mind?
Good question. Sunday school lady?
So one day, Peter is on his roof praying.
Wait, praying on your roof? That's a little weird.
It wasn't weird back then. Roofs were flat and people used them kind of like back porches. So Peter was on the roof and he fell into a trance, which is kind of like being asleep. While he was asleep, God showed him something like a big sheet being lowered from heaven with all the animals in it that the Israelites weren't supposed to eat, according to the laws God gave to Moses. Peter was hungry, and a voice said, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." And Peter said, "I will not. I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." Peter was going to follow God's rules for Israel. But then the voice said, "Don't call anything unclean that God has made clean." And Peter woke up very confused.
I'd be confused too. Why was God telling him to eat things he wasn't supposed to eat?
I was wondering that myself.
The answer was on its way. As Peter was trying to figure this out, 3 men came up to the house and asked for him. They were servants of a Roman army commander named Cornelius. Cornelius loved God, even though he wasn't Jewish. In a dream, an angel had told him to send for Peter, and even told him where Peter would be staying. When Peter heard that God had given a Gentile a dream about him, Peter immediately knew what his own dream meant. The apostles didn't talk to Gentiles because they believed they were unclean, and God was telling Peter not to treat them like that. They were God's children too. So Peter went to see Cornelius and his family and told them all about Jesus and the good news. And Cornelius' whole household became followers of Jesus that day and were filled with the Holy Spirit.
Cornelius and his family started speaking in different languages, just like the Jewish believers had done at Pentecost, a sign for Peter that Gentiles could be filled with the Holy Spirit too. Well, Peter and the other apostles were amazed and realized for the first time that the good news was for everyone.
Cornelius was a Roman who loved God even though he wasn't a Jew. So God spoke through an angel to tell him to send for Peter.
In the meantime, Peter had a vision, a bunch of animals in a sheet, and he had to make a decision, 'cause a voice said, "Peter, get up and eat. Get on your feet, get up and eat."
Now Peter was confused. He didn't know how to choose.
These animals weren't on the list for eating by the Jews.
And then somebody rang his bell. He said,
"Who's there?"
They said,
"Pray tell, would you visit our man Cornelius? He isn't a Jew, but he'd really be blessed."
And Peter at once knew what it meant and why his vision had been sent.
So he said, "Let's go, come on, let's run. The good news is for everyone.
The good news is for everyone."
What's the best news you've ever gotten, Winifred?
There was a sale once on pomegranates, 1972.
Oh, what a life you've lived.
They were 2 for 1.
Right. Back to the show. Okay, so the gentle reptiles get to be a part of the kingdom too.
Gentiles.
I'm just messing with you. So what's next? Who's gonna tell them?
You said God had someone perfect for the job.
But a little bit scary. And it's not Spider-Man.
Nope, not Spider-Man.
So who is it? Batman? The Incredible Hulk? He's a little bit scary.
No, none of those guys. We need to go back to Stephen. Do you remember Stephen?
He's the one whose preaching got the Sadducees and Pharisees so mad they dragged him out and killed him.
That's the guy. So while that was happening, there was a young man off to the side holding the coats of the men who were killing Stephen.
Why didn't he try to stop them?
He didn't want to stop them. He liked it that they were getting rid of a follower of Jesus. This young man was a Pharisee, a very strict Pharisee, and he thought anyone who followed Jesus should be arrested, or worse. His name was Saul.
Wait, Saul? Wasn't he the first king of Israel?
Whoa, was he still around? He must be like 1,000,000 years old.
No, it's not the same Saul. The name Saul had become popular in Israel, so there were lots of people named Saul.
So if he's such a big deal, why haven't I heard of this Saul?
You have, but not by the name Saul. Pastor Paul?
You see, Saul was the Hebrew version of his name, but he spent most of his life among Greeks and Romans, who used the Greek version of his name, Paul.
Paul? I've heard of him.
He's famous.
Wait a minute. Paul started out as a really mean Pharisee?
It's not that he was mean, but like the Pharisees that wanted to kill Jesus, he thought Jesus' followers were teaching things about God that weren't true. He thought they needed to be stopped.
So how does someone who thinks Jesus was wrong end up being the guy who spreads the good news of Jesus farther than anyone else? How does that happen exactly?
That's a good story. Sunday school lady?
Oh, yeah. So Paul was hunting down Jesus' followers and throwing them in prison. He wanted to look for them in other towns, too. So he got permission from the high priest, the head of the Sanhedrin, to go to a town called Damascus and look for Jesus' followers there. But then something amazing happened. As Paul was traveling to Damascus, a bright light from the sky hit him, and he heard a voice that said, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?"
Persecute?
It means to hurt, to be mean to.
Gotcha. Continue.
Right. Why are you trying to hurt me? Paul fell to the ground and said, "Who are you?" And the voice said, "I'm Jesus, the one you're trying to hurt."
Wait, Jesus appeared to Paul? It wasn't a dream. Paul wasn't sleeping or in a trance like Peter was. So yeah, Jesus showed up and started talking to Paul.
When Paul got up off the ground, he was blind. He couldn't see. Jesus told him to go ahead to Damascus and wait there.
How could he make it to Damascus if he couldn't see?
He was traveling with some friends, so they helped him get to Damascus. Meanwhile, in Damascus, there lived a man named Ananias, who was a follower of Jesus. He had a vision, like Peter on the roof, and Jesus shows up in his vision. Jesus tells him to go find this Saul fella. But Ananias knows all about Saul and says, "This is a really mean guy. Why would you want me to find him?" Ananias doesn't want to find Saul. He's scared of him. But then Jesus says, "This Saul is the one I'm going to use to spread the good news about me to Jews and Gentiles and even to kings." So Ananias goes and finds Saul, and when he puts his hands on him, immediately Saul can see again. And Saul becomes a follower of Jesus and starts running around Damascus saying, "Jesus is the Son of God."
Wow, that's quite a change.
He went from arresting people who believe in Jesus to telling people to believe in Jesus. Is that when they changed his name from Saul to Paul?
No, his Jewish friends always called him Saul, and his Gentile friends always called him Paul. Luke starts calling him Paul in the book of Acts when he starts traveling among Gentiles.